it's not the same one we're going to be using in the video.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's another one.
Like that?
Yeah, those all make, these are ones that I have samples of in my dye books.
So should we just slip these in our pocket?
Let's see what else. Oh, let's see what's in this one.
My mom and I are going to do something a little bit different today, and that we're going to dye with lichens. I know nothing about lichens, so everything today is very new to me. But Mom, you started out dyeing with lichens.
Well, actually, I started out with doing plant dyes, and then later on in the process, I discovered that lichens could make a dye.
So today we're doing something that you did all the time and you haven't done in a while, and we're going to try it again.
It's more like 50 years that I haven't done it. But it was a very fascinating process, and I went into the mushroom dyes so thoroughly that I never looked back to doing lichens. And yet a lichen is made up of part of a fungus and part of an algae. So in some ways of looking at it, it's still part of a fungi dye.
Okay.
That's how we get away with talking about it in the Mycological Society anyway.
So what kind of lichen are we going to use today?
This lichen is what's called a wolf lichen, because in Europe apparently it was used to throw into the water and to kill wolves.
Oh.
And at least that's the legend. And the reason we're using this lichen, it's because the one I have the most of.
Yeah.
And it's not found commonly around Sonoma County, except maybe in the northern part of Sonoma County sometime on fences.
Yeah.
But this lichen was actually gathered up in the Sierra.
Okay.
Growing at about 1,000 to 2,000 feet on cedar trees and pine trees, and it's very prolific there. So we were able to gather this off of the ground. We never picked the lichens off the trees.
That's an important point, in that if you're going to experiment with lichens, you have to be very careful on how you collect your lichens.
Right, because lichens take a long time to grow, rather than mushrooms just come up every season, but a lichen will take years and years and years to grow.
So you never take a lichen off a rock?
No, I never take a lichen off a rock and off of a tree, and the best time really to collect them is after a storm.
Okay.
When the wind has blown them down. And actually some storms, they actually did blow the lichens right off of the rocks, at least in Britain. But we collected these, and I brought them home. And so the first thing to do is we want to break it up into little pieces, but not too much like this.
Okay.
And if there are any little pieces of wood attached, we want to take those pieces of wood off.
And why does it matter if the wood goes in the dye?
Because that may affect the color.
Okay, so you have to be careful to just use mostly just
Yes,
garlic.
yes.
Okay.
And my understanding with using this lichen that I found in books from here in California is that it grows very prolifically, and yet we still want to be conservative about it. It's
right.
the whole process is to be careful.
So even if you see lichen everywhere, you would not collect all the lichen. You always leave some.
Only collect absolutely what you need. And for this, what we're going to do is a boiling water dye.
Right, okay.
And for this process, we don't need that much. You just want to collect as much as you're actually going to use. And the ratio would be, if for making a dye, I would start out with 1-to-1 process. Okay. 1 ounce of lichen to 1 ounce of yarn or whatever. Okay. And so we collect it dry like this.
Yeah.
And then what I did was take a bunch of this lichen and soaked it into water overnight. Let's see if I can pull something out like this. Yeah, like this.
Oh yeah.
And
That's
so,
a big difference from the soaked lichen
yes.
from the dry lichen.
Yes, definitely. And you can see it's also easier at that point to pull the sections of little pieces of wood off.
Okay. And so do you have to soak it in the water, or can you go just dry lichen to heating
Well,
it up?
When you soak it into the water, I found, and I can't remember where I first learned of this, but if you added a little bit of vinegar
Uh-huh.
to lower the pH of the dye. Oh, let's just take a reading to see what the pH factor of the lichen in plain water is.
And how long has the lichen been in this jar of water?
In this jar of water, I've had it soaking overnight. That's ideal, is to soak it overnight. So,
Okay.
so what does that?
For right now, it looks about maybe a 5.
A 5. We really wanted to go down to 4. The more, and the reason is the acidic bath helps to release the pigments that are in the lichens themselves.
So you were soaking this in water and vinegar, or just water?
Just water. So I'm going to add vinegar to it.
Okay. And does it need to soak in the vinegar for a while, or just when we do the dye?
Ideally, I would do it when I put the lichen into the water.
Okay.
But I'm just going to do sort of a sample to show you what I would do that, so we can read the difference in the pH. Okay, this is white distilled vinegar.
That you can find anywhere. Nothing.
Find in the grocery store. No poisons involved.
Can I use this to stir it?
Yeah.
So you're gonna take your dried lichens, soak them in this water acid bath for at least 24 hours, but it's okay if it's longer.
Right.
Okay.
So
Oh, that looks good. So we added about what?
we added about 1/4 cup of vinegar.
And now it's at pH 4.
So that's our ideal.
Okay, so that's the ideal when it starts.
Yes.
And then once it's been soaking, then we can just dump it into the water and start boiling. Just the easy water boil method.
Well, actually, yes. We would put the whole thing into the pot to do, but you already have. We already have water in here.
I did.
Okay.
So we'll just take the lichen out, add it to the pot, and then we'll add more vinegar in.
Yes, and we can recheck that. That's the best way to do it.
I can see why just dumping it would be more straightforward. We should have just dumped out the water in the pot and then did your method.
We're inventing this as we're going along. And this is the whole process for me, because it's like I'm rediscovering an old friend
Yeah.
that I knew 50 years ago. And see how just in soaking overnight, in 24 hours, that color
Yeah.
has
you can see
come
already.
in. Yeah.
Which makes me think maybe we should just add it in anyway, but that's okay. We'll just do it this way. And maybe we can save that and add more lichen into that and then use that later.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That, I don't
Nothing
think we should-
nothing gets wasted.
No, let's not waste it. Okay, so now we'll need to add more vinegar into this again, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm
You
going
do
to.
vinegar and I'll do the testing.
Okay, why don't you test and see what it is in here for comparison?
Okay. Yeah, it went straight back to
It
5,
went
so-
right back to 5
Okay,
being
yeah.
diluted with the water. Okay.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
So now we're going to add more vinegar.
Yeah.
Another 1/4 cup of vinegar.
Yep.
You just stir it in around like that. Okay. I will test it again.
And ideally, we'd be writing this all down.
Yes. Ideally, we would be writing this all down.
That's all right. Oh yeah, that's much better. So we've gone now back to 4.
4.
So it seems like that 1/4 cup is the magic amount. But of course, that would change depending on the amount of water. And
Exactly.
lichen and...
Exactly.
Okay, so now what do? Do we just heat it up?
So then the ideal way to do this would be to heat it up and let it simmer for 1 hour.
Okay.
And different lichens have different amounts of pigments in them, and so you learn by doing. An hour works fine for this one, but for maybe another lichen, you might want to go an hour and a half. But there are other lichens that are called ammonia vat lichens.
I've heard of those.
And those are the ones that have a specific acid in them that will release red and purple dyes.
Okay, we'll have to do that one next. Cause...
That'll be a very exciting thing, yeah. But right now we're going to stick with just doing a boiling water dye for introductory.
I think this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
This has been boiling for an hour, and we can already see that the color has deepened a lot.
Yes.
And now we can add our fiber. So what are we adding?
We're adding about an ounce, a half an ounce of a white wool that is not mordanted.
Okay.
The lichens do not have to have mordants to be light fast and color fast.
You're closer. Do you want to add?
Okay, so we're going to just add it into the.
And so we don't need a mordant
We don't need a mordant. We're just going to put this in and cook it with the lichen
for an hour.
for about an hour. Yes. And I put the lichen and the wool in together. Sometimes people like to strain the lichen out and then just use it with the water.
Yeah.
But I have found that with some lichens, not necessarily this one, but other lichens, the pigment will go straight into the yarn and never discolor the water.
Wow.
The water will stay perfectly clear. You say, what's happening? But the transfer is happening.
It's already changing.
Already, look at that already.
Okay, so we will leave this alone for an hour and then we'll come back and check.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, we're ready to go?
Yes, it's
Let's see
simmered
what
for an
it's-
hour and this color is spectacular.
Look at this.
This
1
is
hour
amazing.
without any mordant or anything.
And just boiling the lichen in with the water.
Just boiling the lichen in with the water. So I think this will work fine for doing a solar dye this summer.
Let's do it. Let's try this again as a solar dye, and let's do more lichen dyes in the future.
Okay, that's
Okay.
a deal.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for all your help.
Thank you, Mom. This is so much fun.
Okay.